Stacy, here's okay.
Good morning, good evening. Sorry I'm late. I just finished another call.
That's okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. We should be having some late pop-ins here, so I'll try to recognize everybody when they come in and not take away from our session today. Today we're going to talk about feedback, and we're going to approach it in a couple maybe different perspectives. And so let me put up our visual aid here. Make sure everybody can see. All right.
We can.
You okay with that? Can see it? Okay. All right. So this is the title of this one is Flipping the Script on Feedback. So I'll give that to you in a minute. Let me just start out with, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best, raise your hand when I give you the number on how good you are at giving feedback to others. All right? You think you give it really well. Raise your hand if it's a 5. Are you a good feedback giver? How about 4? 3? Okay, 2. Okay, the rest will be a 1. All right, how about on receiving feedback? How are you at receiving feedback? So you're really good at it to a 5. Let's do that same scale again. I'm really good at getting feedback, and I'm a 5. Or 4. 3. Okay, 2. Okay. All right, well, good. This is going to be a timely and hopefully a session that you'll pick up a couple things, both on giving and getting feedback, right? Feedback, actually, if it's done well, creates a culture that brews new ideas, that allows all voices to be heard, that helps people make mistakes and know that those are normal part of business and life, and we need to learn from them. And so feedback, I think, has gotten a bad rap as a name for a long time because we've grown up with feedback in kind of a negative connotation in many ways. So let me ask you, everybody have a pen and paper handy, because I am going to ask you a couple of questions. So the first question I want you just to think about is recall some feedback in your mind where you've gotten some feedback from someone, you've worked on it, thought you were doing better, only to get the same feedback later on. Okay, that's one scenario. Or maybe you got feedback, you misinterpreted it and figured that out later. Or you got feedback you didn't want to hear and you realized you needed to hear it. So think of a feedback moment given to you anytime and kind of think about your reaction to that. All right. I would like this to be conversational today. All right. So does anybody have an example they want to share with everyone else on getting feedback? Look, you already raised your hand. No one was a 5 really at getting feedback or giving it. If we get feedback and learn from that, we actually get better at giving feedback. So let's take the realm of getting feedback in your career. When did you get something? Was it perfect in the way that you were able to respond to it? You got the same feedback later, or you didn't really realize what that feedback meant and you figured that out later? Who has a story they want to share?
I'll share.
Thank you, Jason.
Sure. Uh, the feedback I got, I quite honestly had felt stagnant in my career, and so I started seeking feedback from people during presentations and during big meetings that I was a part of. And one feedback I got, one piece of feedback I got was that during the meeting, I came across as flippant or not taking things serious is probably a better word, because I would tell a joke or two during the meeting, maybe seven or eight, uh, probably way too many jokes. And, part of it was, well, whatever reason, it didn't matter why. But so I started really paying attention to how much, uh, you know, joking I would do and how trying to see how I was perceived. And I think I did well. And I eventually got some feedback that I was doing fine, but then I slipped as I got more comfortable in the meetings again. I slipped back into it, uh, and then got the feedback again that because of that, people felt I wasn't taking things as serious as I should, or that I wasn't paying attention like I should. So it's something that I received the feedback, thought I took action on, thought I did well, and then got more feedback of the same.
Okay.
And probably do another round of feedback.
Okay, well, listen, we're going to cover some things today, Jason. So maybe there's a couple tips that you can think about that will keep you from sliding back into that. Okay. And I think Jason points out a super example. Thank you for starting us off and being so
Sure.
vulnerable. And this is a delicate balance. Jason is probably a funny jokester kind of guy, right? In casual conversation at lunches and everything. I think I want to be around Jason because I love to laugh and hear jokes. But you, of course, also remember the conversation we had about perception? It's in bits and slices. So the slice that someone is getting of Jason is all of that in the presentation, and that creates the perception that, real or not, says um, to Jason and to others, well, maybe he's not that serious. He's always joking around. In a big world context, it's only a piece of Jason. But in that particular situation, that's what was the impression. So good way to understand that. Thanks, Jason. Anybody else want to give me an example?
I can share one.
Lisa, thanks.
Um, and this is the one that probably it was years ago, but it blindsided me the most, and I learned a lot from it as I tried to receive it. I was working with a group of people that um, had a very different personality type than I had. And I was in charge of running the team meetings. And I like agendas and I like to-do lists and action items and plans. And these people did not at all. And so in one of our team meetings, we were doing team building, and they gave me the feedback that when I took action items or sent out, tasks after the meetings, it felt like very constricting, and like it stifled their creativity, and they didn't like having structured agenda for meetings because
Hmm.
they enjoyed more of the free flow discussion. And it was the first time I'd gotten feedback, and I honestly had no idea how to accomplish what I was being expected to accomplish at work, while also trying to be responsive to the feedback I was given. And in so I just asked for help because I was like, I have no idea what to do with this. Like, this is what I've got to accomplish. How do I do that in a way? Like, and it took like a few weeks, but I think they weren't expecting me to say, I have no idea how to do this, or I have no idea how to like I hear
Well, who
you
helped
and I
you,
have no
Lisa?
idea what to do with it.
Yeah. Did someone help you?
They did. We worked through it, and what ended up happening is we kind of both moved to the middle, right? Like they started to understand why I needed to track actions and why I felt like it was important to have an agenda, and I was able to loosen up the agenda. So we no longer had a time block agenda. We just had here's the three critical things we absolutely have to talk about. And then if we have time, here's the other thing. So it like we work together to try to like find a balance of accomplishing what we need to accomplish, but yet fitting the, the personality style of the group.
That's another great example. And I'm going to refer both to Jason and Lisa's examples later on because you guys set it up perfectly. One additional question, Lisa, for you. Was the culture of this company that you were in much more casual and conversational to begin with?
No, it was actually when I was a DoD consultant. So it was a military
Okay.
company, but I was working with an IT team. And so I was working with a bunch of software developers. And I mean, I guess a side note to the story is that we ended up doing Myers-Briggs about a year later and going deeper on the facets of like the different personality preferences. And they did this exercise where you had to go to a corner of the room based on your personality preferences. And I was the only one in my corner. Like everyone was literally like the complete opposite of me. And I'll be honest, like I started to cry like happy tears of like, see, like this is why you think I'm such an odd duck because I was an outsider.
You're just you. I see Shen's coming in here. Okay. All right. Those are great examples. Thanks for expanding on that. All right. Let's get rocking and rolling here then. Let me get my cursor. Okay. So when we think about feedback, and you guys gave some great examples, when you ask for feedback or given feedback and you show change, you both gave examples of showing change, right? Then that sort of improves the whole dynamic of the team. I gave someone feedback, they heard it, they took it in, and they actually started to do something with it. There is a study out by PwC that said, this goes back to the lack of hand raises on number 5 at the beginning, that subjects in this study felt equally anxious about offering feedback and receiving it. So both, in both directions. And so we're going to explore that a little bit. What if, though, feedback actually felt like a gift or you received it like a gift? And that sets up a very different environment. It sets up a different environment culturally. So we're going to flip the script on feedback a little bit. All right, this question. Can I give you some feedback? Jason, you walk out of the presentation and someone walks up to you and says, can I give you some feedback? Nina, you came out of your presentation and someone walks up to you as you're walking down the hall, taps you on the shoulder. Nina, can I give you some feedback? What do you think goes through your mind, Marcus, if that happens to you?
I mean, I would like it because it's something you're usually not getting just randomly, right? If you're not asking for it, it's rare that someone comes up and says, "Hey, I want to give you some feedback." So I think it's a nice opportunity.
And okay, great. That's great. You're going to be a good recipient of feedback. You know it's something to improve on when someone says that, don't you think? Because if
That's
they
fine.
really liked Jason's presentation, they wouldn't have said, can I give you some feedback? By the way, that was great. They would come in, they'd say, hey, Jason, that was a great presentation, right? They're not going to set up I'm going to give you something to improve on if they really, really liked it. So I have a friend who was a business unit president at Kimberly-Clark, and she and I were having a conversation, and she said, I really wanted to change the dynamics of my team. I wanted us to create this open feedback environment. And so I thought I needed to be the first one to kind of lead by example. And so she has her team around her, team meeting. And she says to all of them, listen, I'm open to feedback and I want us to all share feedback. So I'm going to start. Does anybody have feedback for me? And no one said anything. And Joanne said, I think that was feedback right then and there. No one said anything. No one felt comfortable to be able to say anything. I can't ask them for feedback. I didn't even set up the right conditions in order to get feedback. So the flipping of the script that we're going to do today is we're going to take it from the approach of you as a leader asking for feedback and role modeling, receiving it and acting upon it. One, it helps you give feedback. Two, when you role model that, you, like Joanne, would have a different response. Okay, so we're going to set that up. We're going to start with the breakout. Samantha, let's see how many people we have here.
I have 3 groups of 4.
Okay, 3 groups of 4. You are going to get 10 minutes, Samantha.
Okay.
All right, you're going to have 10 minutes once we send you out. And in your foursome, I want you to discuss 2 things. What behaviors have you seen a leader do that, or that comes across in giving feedback that the behavior feels unsafe or performative, or it's a subtle sign from that person, maybe their body language, that shuts people down from actually taking the feedback in. Okay, so that's one view. I want you all to discuss what kind of, that's kind of a not so great giving feedback. Someone's giving you feedback, but the way that they're giving it to you feels unsafe, performative, and you're feeling signals that don't feel great. The other way to discuss is, what behaviors do you feel a leader gives when they're giving feedback that actually help you receive it? What are they doing when they're giving you good feedback? What do you see them do? Okay, so we want examples that it doesn't go well and examples that actually look pretty well, and we're going to focus on the latter one. When we come back, we're going to share out on some of those. All right, so you got 10 minutes, the 4 in your group. Remember, we have 2 things: the behaviors and the signals that a leader sends to you, giving you during the feedback time, that make you shut down and don't feel good. And the other kind, like, when's good feedback and how do you feel and what are the signals that that leader sends to you? Okay? All right, I'll see you back in 10 minutes. Let's see, who's in the 4th group? I pulled. And, oh, I can't see who's in room 4. Give me a name of someone in room 4.
There's only 3 rooms, so we
Oh,
have
3.
yeah,
Okay, I got it. Ollie, Edward, and Marcus. Okay.
yeah. There was an empty 4th room. I just deleted it though.
Okay, and someone
Oh.
just came in at the end.
Debbie, let me put you in to let's see.
I see Debbie in room 1.
She's 2. She needs to join. I don't know if she needs to join the second device, but I'm gonna try and.
Okay.
Oh, there. Debbie, are you getting the prompt to join room 1? I have your other device in there already. Oh, there she goes. Okay. Perfect.
All right. Someone came in late and I let him in. I didn't know if you hadn't seen that, but
Um,
I think it was Farish, maybe.
his second one?
Someone just came in a little while ago.
I think it was his second device.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, it is recording. Yeah, just wanted to make sure. I'm gonna
Okay.
cut this part out.
So that's 8:30. Let's see if I can get to the rest by 9. A lot to go through. We may not have the second breakout, Samantha.
Okay. Well, I'll just be listening. So if
Okay.
maybe if we don't have it, would you make it just a group discussion at that
Well,
time?
I'm trying to pull them in all along.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll just use that as an example and pull them in.
Okay.
We didn't get started until
Like
5 after.
8:05, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna run to the restroom.
Okay.
All right, Samantha, how much time?
We have 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay.
All right, final 90 seconds.
Oh, my cursor's frozen.
Oh no.
Uh-oh. I'm completely frozen.
Oh shoot. Okay. I have it pulled up.
Here we go.
All right. 20 seconds. And here they come.
Okay, welcome back. This is also an opportunity for you all to get to know each other when we do these breakouts. So glad that that can happen. I have three names out of the breakouts, and I'm going to ask Ali to first and his team, what negative behaviors or signals shut people down when a leader's trying to give you the feedback? What did you all come up with in your group? Ali, do you mind sharing?
I took some notes, but it was in the previous room, so
It's okay.
I will try to remember.
Yeah.
So one culture driving behavior, because actually we talked more about this one. It's when you don't have consistent feedbacks, when it's sporadic. I don't know if you say sporadic. When it's not frequent, when it's when it's reactionary based on something, just an escalation, and you don't have all the information, and you make judgments without knowing everything. When there are no enough questions also, and it's like an affirmation, and you say, okay, you are like this, you are doing that.
That's
And
great.
also when you don't have a balance between a constructive and positive feedback.
Okay, that's
That's
a great.
what I remember.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. I'm sure you have some nodding heads there. So those are behaviors that we on receiving obviously don't want to have, right? But as you as leaders, what we're going to address today is you giving feedback. So if what you talked about in your group is those things didn't feel good to us, then as a leader, you don't want to be doing that. You want to give constructive feedback according to group one, right? You don't want to just bring it into a point in time without the full context, right? Hearing the back and forth and so forth. You all know this intuitively. It's good to be reminded. So that's great. Let's talk about behaviors that actually show up pretty well. So give me three, Edward, out of your group. Give me three that are positive, create a good environment when someone has these kind of behaviors and signals.
Um, I'm going to turn also the one we discussed negative into positive because we did cover a lot the first one, but the one we mentioned is the delivery by being calm and not having emotion that would be angry or too intense in the delivery of the message, makes the message easier to accept. We mentioned timing, that delaying the feedback makes it less relevant. The fact can seem distorted by either the giver or the recipient, and it's just it shuts down. So doing it right after is probably better, and also keeping room for discussion, giving the feedback and then leaving it open for discussion of how do you receive that feedback. Do you agree? Do you think that's fair? I mean, whatever comes to the mind to the person receiving it, but not giving the feedback, leaving the room and shutting the door right after. That's not creating the culture for development that we expect. So that's what we touch point, I think, in the
I
group.
think that's great. Thank you. All right, you all get the idea. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to think about you role modeling, getting feedback for your teams. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about from here on, because by you role modeling how you take it and how you action it opens up the opportunity for your direct reports to say, oh, I see how taking feedback and actioning it is actually a pretty good thing. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I want you to role model the asking for feedback. This is what we're going to spend our time on. This in turn creates a really positive culture around you and your team. Whether Otis is positive on this or not, I'm not going to ask that question. I'm sure it varies by leader, it varies by team, unless it's just really good in an organization. I know at Nestle, they say everybody gives really nice feedback. In fact, it's so nice, it's not actually constructive. And so they have a term at Nestle, it's Nestle nice. And so it doesn't feel genuine. So we want to have genuine feedback, right? That you can generate continuous improvement and growth on. Okay, so I'm gonna give you an example of John. John is the leader. He's asked Mary to come in and give him some feedback, right? He set up a time to do it. He wants feedback. So great, that's a good set this scenario. So he's well-intentioned. You can see his body language. He's listening, he's smiling. He's probably nodding his head if this was, interactive. And you are Mary, and you've prepared the feedback. You're going in, you're giving it to him, and John seems to be listening. Okay. The end of the session happens, and John goes away, and weeks go by, and you don't see any change in John. And you start to get frustrated as the person giving feedback, like, well, I guess he didn't really care about my feedback. Like Jason, if you had not made a change, the person who told you that would go, well, I'm not going to give Jason feedback anymore. He obviously doesn't care to do anything, right? And so the comment I would make to you is that well-intentioned leaders, all of you are well-intentioned leaders, can come across as creating a scenario that isn't so good if the person giving that feedback doesn't see real change. They may not want to give you feedback again. So I want to talk about 4 things that really make feedback giving and receiving successful. Okay. It's in the how you ask for it and listen, which John was doing that. He was asking for it. He set a time for it. He was listening for the feedback, but it's also just as important in how you respond and action the feedback. So our early examples, talked about, they heard the feedback and they decided that I'm going to try to figure out what to do with this. So good examples when we started out. So here are the 4 things. If you want to take notes, we will send you some highlights as well. When you're asking for feedback, you're going to ask open-ended questions. And then you're going to listen with curiosity. And then here's the key. You're going to visualize the behavior differently. And then you're going to check back to confirm progress. Jason, you confirmed that you got better feedback, but checking in from time to time, since you know you slip into that mode, might have to have a person in your corner who can give you that regularly. Like, am I slipping? Am I not? Right? So those are the 4 things. So the first one is ask open-ended questions. Now, those questions are questions that begin with what? And they are questions that begin with how. All right, so let me give you an example. How and what questions? Like, you came out of your presentation, and you might say, how could I have shown more energy in that session? Okay, or what could I have shared to better illustrate my main point? So you're asking open-ended questions, and it's really great to do it in the moment, not delayed. So again, you're the leader, you're role modeling, getting feedback. The first thing to do is to ask people on your team, you were in my presentation, you were in the town hall. What could I have done to show more energy? How did you think the main points landed? Ask open-ended questions in the moment of your team. They're going to appreciate that you're asking for their feedback. Now, this feedback mechanism is one of my favorites. And this one is asking it on a scale. And you say, hey, Jason, how did I do on a scale of 1 to 10? If 10 was best, how do you think I did on my presentation? Okay. That's not the most important question. The next question is, okay, thanks for the feedback, right? If it's a 7, what would have made it a 10? Or you could have even just, what would have made it an 8? All you have to do is get an incremental change, but you're asking someone, tell me what would have made it an 8. So those are 2 examples of how to ask for feedback in the moment. Begin to ask them with your team. They may turn around and start to ask you the same thing, right? Hey, Rish, can you tell me how I did on that presentation? Okay. The second thing to ask or to do to role model is you have to listen with curiosity, not being distracted with other things. All right. That means active listening. That means body language. That means looking right into your eyes when I'm asking for the feedback and listening and nodding and so forth. I'm taking this in. I'm listening. Is this the most important thing I've ever heard? Okay. I think you all got these 2 things down, but maybe there's a reminder or 2 in there. I'm going to stick a quote in here because I do love this quote. It's just not possible to learn what you think you already know. So we got to ask other people, right? So curious leaders will do that. How you ask for questions and listen is step 1 and 2, and that's critical. But it actually doesn't become successful unless you do the last part. And that's in how you respond and action it. So let's take 360 reviews. Do you all do those? Some of you do. Okay. Do you all do some formal performance assessment where you're getting ratings and written feedback, right? Or to the example that I think Ollie said, if someone gives you feedback right in that moment and they don't have the full context, it's kind of hard to listen because they don't have the full story, right? Look, it is human nature for us when we ask or get feedback. We want to learn, we want to grow, we want to get better. But there's also human nature that we also want to be accepted and respected for the way that we are right now. You all are successful. You're high performers. you already have a lot of great examples of success behind you, you wouldn't be here in this program. Obviously, always an opportunity to grow and learn. But when we get feedback that comes across as out of left field or not based in reality or makes us suspicious, we might discount that feedback. And there's a term that we use, which is called wrong spotting. All right. And when we desire to be accepted and respected, we can tend to wrong spot more often. So what do I mean by wrong spotting? Wrong spotting means that you discount the feedback for a variety of reasons. Maybe you discount it because, Jason, I don't mean to pick on you, but I love your example. Maybe you didn't tell jokes until the end of your presentation, and the person who gave you that feedback walked in for the last 10 minutes. And that's what they heard, and you knew that. And so when they gave you that feedback, you're going, well, he should have been there for the whole presentation when I was actually presenting and not wrapping up and having fun, right? And so you can wrong spot the feedback and discount it for a variety of reasons. One of those could be that particular situation that I gave it. Maybe it's the circumstance that you received it. Maybe someone came into your office and, you know, they're angry about something that just happened and it's out of context. And so you discount the feedback, and that's called wrong spotting. When someone does a 360, I think some of you raised your hand. What can often happen is you're reading your comments from people that are supposed to be blind, and you start to say, oh, I know that came from Edward. I just know that's comments from Edward. I just know his style of writing, and I know that's what he said about me, right? And so you start to look for a reason not to accept the feedback, and that's called wrong spotting. So let's change and flip this, because we want to be curious about what we're hearing, whether it's right or wrong. We want to get it. So here's another way to get feedback that will actually give you some very good constructive feedback. And I have done this in a room of 200 people. And I know it works. And these were 200 senior most leaders at Merck Pharmaceutical. And I did this exercise with them, and I encourage you to use this in your, opportunities in leadership with you and your team. So it's called the one thing. And you start your request for feedback using what's one thing. Okay? What's one thing? Now, the reason this is a great starting point, when you ask someone what's one thing, you're giving them the opportunity to give you one thing. You're not saying, is there anything I could do better on my presentation? And that person's, no, it was great. I wouldn't change a thing, right? When you ask what's one thing, you're assuming you have at least one thing you know you could do better, and you want to hear from that person. So what's one thing? Now, here's some examples. What's one thing I could change about how I run my weekly meeting? I told you about Joanne at the beginning of our session, when she just asked her whole team, what improvement do you want to tell me I can do? Right? Start small. Maybe she just got everybody around the table and she goes, okay, everybody take out a pen and paper. I want everybody to jot down one thing I can do to make our team meetings better. And everybody jots it down separately. Now you're starting to build a culture of feedback. And then you have everybody share it. If you just lay it out there and hope someone's going to talk, like I did at the very beginning, and thank you, Jason, for breaking the ice, but that could happen to your own team, right? If you throw a question out there, no one wants to be the first. So get them to put it down on paper. What's one thing I could do to make our weekly meeting better? Okay, that's an easy one, but you're starting to set up an environment of open feedback. All right, here's one that's a little tougher. What's one thing that you see me doing that's getting in my way? And Jason, had you asked that to someone and you say, what's one thing you see me doing that I'm doing that's getting in my way? They might say, hey, Jason, I think your presentations would have a lot more impact. I think the jokes are great, but maybe reduce the number. Not everybody in that around that table wants to hear that many jokes. Okay. So that's another way to ask as a leader. What's one thing you see me doing or failing to do that's getting in my way? And that's great to do in a one-on-one with your direct reports, right? Hopefully you're having that kind of dialogue with your direct reports. All right, here's another one. What's one thing I could change that would make a difference to you in our working relationship? Or maybe you want to do it with someone who's just a relationship. What's one thing I could do, what we could do to make a difference in our friendship? This is a powerful feedback question. What's one thing? I guarantee if you try it, you're going to see some amazing things that come back to it because you're giving people a permission to give you at least one thing. All right, so that's super. What's one question? I want you to think about what could you maybe ask your sponsor to help you with? How about this? What's one thing I could do to show up and give people the sense I'm strategic? What's one thing I can learn about executive leadership? What's one thing I can do to make our one-on-one meetings better? Instead of just having them, ask it. What's one thing that I could do to make our one-on-ones better? Okay, use this. It is a great open-ended question. All right, those are two great things. Ask open-ended questions, listen with curiosity. Here comes the big piece. And that is now the third thing and most important thing is visualizing the behavior differently. Okay, my cursor's frozen. I just want you to know. Do you see visualize the behavior differently on your slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So the important thing, John, the example, when you ask for feedback and someone gives you feedback and says to you, let me just take that example. I think you need to come across as more strategic in our conversations or show up more strategic in the meetings. Well, what does that look like? You have to ask people what that behavior looks like when it's done differently. If you don't have a picture of what it looks like, how do you make any improvements? John, our example, listened intently to the feedback. He most likely took the feedback and started making changes, and he thinks he's doing a great job. I took the feedback, I'm making changes, and that's good. I listened and I'm making the changes, but the person who gave him the feedback wasn't seeing the change that she had in her mind. So, Jason, going back now, you've got the person who gave you feedback based on joking. Maybe that wasn't really the key point. You don't know. Go ask other people, what's one thing I could do differently or better in my presentations that would land the message better? And then whenever they tell you, what does that look like? Who does that well in our company? Because unless you can visualize the difference, you can't hope to satisfy the person that gave you the feedback. However, you don't always have to satisfy the person who gave you the feedback. Someone may have given you feedback that really was not good feedback, or that's asking you to do something that you fundamentally can't change. I get that. We're going to take in feedback that we can. We're going to constructively say, does that make a difference for me or not? And I will try to make some adjustments. However, as a leader and the people around your table, they have a need to be able to relate to you as their manager. You better pay attention to their feedback particularly well and ask them what that looks like. So Joanne, when she asks her team and wants to open up a dialogue of open communication, giving feedback to each other around the table, or even about the work that you are doing around the table, you take away the challenge and the problems that sometimes happen, that the initiative, the action isn't going well. And this is the time for you all to talk about, why is it going well? What do we need to learn? What happens next? It doesn't mean that you can't learn from that moment and move it on. So as leaders, role model, that's okay. Role model things in your meeting. What are we not talking about that we need to be talking about in our meeting? Guess what? I bet there's something around your table that someone isn't sharing with you that needs to be talked about in the team. So as a leader, role model getting feedback, role model the openness, but always ask people, well, what does that look like when it's done differently? Okay, because that's actually the most powerful thing. We had as our second session together, perception. If the perception of you is you didn't take my feedback, you didn't listen, or you keep doing the same thing that I told you is detrimental to how you show up, my perception will not change. To close the gap on perception, if you ask someone, thank you, what does that look like for you if that is done better? Now I've just told that person that's important to me, and I'm going to try to action it. And I know what it looks like because you're going to tell me. And then the last thing you're going to do is follow up with them. Okay. So what I want to do next is I want to create a scenario for you as practicing with the direct report. Okay. I want you to think of a direct report who needs some feedback. Okay. Pick that person in your mind. Don't have to write down their name for anybody else. And I want you with, we're going to put you in pairs. And with your pairs, do we have an even number, Samantha?
Yes.
Okay. In your pairs, I want you to ask the other person, describe what your direct report is doing. You don't have to say their name. Describe the feedback you want to give to them. Share with your partner. I think this would be better if this person did this instead. You're going to have to give an answer for what it would look like differently. You can't tell your direct report you need to be strategic and then not tell them what that looks like. Okay, so think of someone you need to give feedback to and be sure that you paint the picture for them. Because you, in return, are going to ask for that when someone's giving you feedback. What does that look like? That's what makes feedback valuable. If they don't know what to do differently, they can't possibly improve in a way that's going to be satisfactory. Okay, so we have, you're going to have 7 minutes, 8 minutes together, Samantha, 8 minutes as a pair. Give the example of your direct report. What would you tell them that looks like differently? And you, as the partner, give them some more ideas. Here's another thing that you could describe that would look differently. All right? Help each other to give feedback to their direct report. I'm not going to debrief that when you come back on what you said, This is a great time to use a colleague as a sounding board, which is part of the benefit of being in this cohort. I need to have this difficult conversation with so-and-so. I think this is what I want to say, and this is the picture I want to paint. But I'm one person. So get another idea from another cohort, another colleague of yours in this cohort. How else could that show up? All right, 8 minutes together, and I'll see you when you're back. All right, I like the smiles. Okay, how was that working with a colleague, trying to help paint a picture for your feedback you're going to give?
So I think giving feedback is much easier rather than creating our own scenario and sharing with others.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Naveed, you were leaning in. Were you going to say something?
No, it's just interesting. I mean, I was with Marcus, right? So, and I was just asking him that I've been told like Germans don't like praise in terms of feedback, and he was like, "Yeah, we don't do it so often, so maybe it's just taken as a surprise and stuff like that." So, um, so yeah, so you have to obviously, I mean, obviously, if you have a global role, we work in a global environment, you have to take into consideration that, different cultures have different, perspectives on how feedback should be given, right? And you have to always take that into consideration as well. And then the example I was giving was that when you are giving feedback, sometimes it's important to give feedback publicly. And you then have to make decisions whether you're going to do it privately, publicly, and also then follow that up with a confirmation in terms of. So I gave someone feedback publicly in my team meeting. Then I followed it up with because I wanted it was a message to the entire team. And then I followed that with an email, and then I followed it up separately on a one-to-one as well. But so it depends on the nature of why you're giving the feedback, etc.
Right.
So there's and feedback isn't always negative, right? So it's
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah, that's right. Good reflection. Any reflections from anyone else on this activity?
Well, probably the more difficult we believe the feedback is to receive, the more doubtful we are on how to give it, and that's not easy. That was our discussion where with Juicy we believe a very important feedback needs to be given, but it can be taken very badly as well. So
Yeah.
then you are full of doubts on how to do it properly, so it has a positive effect because you have a good person in front of you, and you don't want to break their leg, right?
Yeah. It's I had a really good manager who was very transparent and open in giving me feedback that I needed to hear, but I liked the way that he set it up. And he would, when we'd sit down, he'd say, "I'm going to share some things with you that aren't going to feel good. And so I just want to be transparent with you. But before I even do that, I want you to know that the purpose of this conversation is so that the two of us can figure out what we do going forward. And I'm here to support that going forward." Right. And so you kind of set up like you've already, because when you start to give negative feedback or feedback that's hard to hear and you haven't set it up, then all of a sudden I feel whiplashed, right? Even just setting the stage of this is going to be a difficult conversation. It's, something though that you need to hear because, it could limit your growth in the future. I'm here because I'm interested in your growth for the future. So I want to have a very open and transparent conversation with you. Okay. And then I think if you can set it up that way, then people already start to get ready for it. They know you have their best interests in heart. They're not left to wonder at the beginning, oh, where's this going? Is this my last day kind of thing? right? So you are already setting it up with, this is going to be difficult, may not be, and maybe a surprise on how you hear it. I'm here in your corner. We're going to work through this because I want you to do better. And I know that, you're well thought of, and this is part of growth. However you want to set that up. I think that made a big difference to me, Edward. So if that works for you, that's great. Any other ahas or perceptions as a result of the activity?
I'll go. It was interesting as we were talking about how to do it and set the stage about how would someone show up differently, and here's the feedback, and this is how I think it would look on the other side. I was thinking in my mind too much of very pointed, very directional feedback, like you're doing this, stop. This is what I want you to do. Uh, so when Hurkesh and I were talking, he actually brought up a lot more that it's more of a finding that what does the right behavior look like is more of a two-way street, more of a conversation and an agreement towards the end than just me as the manager, all knowing, tell them exactly everything. And so you get better buy-in. And quite honestly, I mean, they're the ones that have to do it, so they should have a piece in saying how it looks.
Yeah, I love that feedback for the feedback. I think it's great because now that brings in other possibilities. I'm still going to get a chance to show up as me, but a better me, right? And maybe incorporating some things. So I think that was a great discussion to have in there. You might also point out who else you think already does this well, because likely that person is also different from you. And you might say, hey, I think so-and-so stands out in this particular area. Just observe and see what they do. And maybe there's something to learn from that as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think the message here, which I think you got, is that unless you can tell someone how it shows up, they kind of don't have a direction on where to make the change, right? And so that's an important part of the feedback. You do the same. Ask for feedback, ask it of your teams, ask how it shows up for them, ask them to paint you a picture, okay? And be the role model in doing that. And then, you always want to check back and confirm, hey, I've been appreciated that you gave me that feedback on telling too many jokes. Jason, I hope you realize I'm just using you as an example. And I've been working really hard on that. Have you seen a difference? Is it showing up better? Right? And you could also, if you feel like you're slipping, Jason, you could, without ceding to someone else that it's the joke thing that you got feedback on before, ask them a different question. Hey, how's my presentation coming across? What's one thing I could do differently to make that, land even better? And it may not be, they might say to you, well, I love how you lighten the room with your jokes and so forth. And for them, that may be just the right amount. They may have something else. So also the message here is don't key in on just one feedback as the reason that something isn't coming across as well. It might be the easiest one for someone to point out, right? In your situation, it may be that people in the audience at that point were on a tight time frame and you were coming in, I'm making this up, you were coming in and you had 15 minutes and the next person had 15 minutes and you're joking, so your 15 minutes becomes 17. And someone invariably around the table, I'm German too, I'll be that person and say, you're 2 minutes over. And now I can't even listen to you because you're 2 minutes over. Right, Lisa? Holding them to a clock, holding them to a time, right? We're all different. So the only way to know what is in the eyes of the beholder is to ask them. How does that look differently? All right, you all came to this morning. For those of you, when I said let's open up No one gave themselves a 5 on giving or receiving feedback. So hopefully you had a takeaway from this. So I'm just going to open it up before I close it out. Who has a takeaway from today to move their own number from 3 to 4 or 4 to 5? Takeaways?
I think Jason is doing too much jokes.
Make sure you give him that feedback next time, Molly.
I think it's always a good reminder to view it as a gift, right? And that's something that I don't think is fully ingrained in Otis's culture yet, but we as leaders have to model that behavior. And so I really like the question about the one thing. Like, what's the one thing we could do? Because that's approachable, it's bite sized, it's an easy way to start modeling that. So that was the biggest takeaway for me today.
That's great. I love that question. And just a little tweak there, and you may not even know you said this, Lisa. It's what's one thing, not what's the one thing.
You're right. Yep.
What's one thing? Because that person may be going, oh God, I can give you 3 or 4, but I'll give you one because you
What's
asked
the
for it.
least one? Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, love that. That question worked so great.
I think the biggest takeaway from to provide feedback in the most transparent way. Yeah, because sometimes we want to do the communication with a more encouraging way. With this said, sometimes the conversation is so transparent enough, so the information may be not clear.
Yeah.
And that is something I would like to try going forward.
Great. Thanks, Stacy. Anyone else? And then I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, for me, so what's one thing that resonated, and also the scale concept. Those are the two things that I wrote down that I think are helpful in kind of encouraging others to give feedback. So what would you rate it on a scale? I liked your example of 7. Well, what would make it an 8? What would make it a 10? I think I'm going to take that and use it.
Yeah, because again, you can visualize that, right?
Yep.
If you just walk away and you go, well, I don't know what to do differently to make it a 10, right? Okay.
On my side, I would say today I realized that I also have a role to model. So this is what you explained, the role modeling of the organization, because until today I was giving and receiving feedback. Not always good, but I was doing it with my direct reports. But the concept of enabling and empowering all my organization to do it, it's another story. So I will think about how I can make it happen in the organization by exemplarity and so everything you explained today.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And that is the point. Look, if you don't have a culture at Otis yet for this, you can create it for your own team. And over time, you will future leaders, Otis. I mean, this will be your company. If you stay with Otis, right, you'll be the ones who will be leading this in a much broader way. So great thing to start with and a great way to build open culture, because that's where the ideas come from. All right, I'm going to give you a quote. The quote is from a gentleman you've never heard of unless you happen to live in Atlanta, Georgia, because it's a local pastor. He's also a leadership guru. He's actually written quite a few books. They're actually pretty good, but this quote is great. I'll read it, but I want you to just absorb it, and it's this. No one has been fired for asking a question on feedback. But plenty of people would not have been fired if they had asked a question. Right? So as people, if we're not asking question on how to improve, how to grow, the firing thing is just an output of not growing, staying stagnant in many ways. That can often be a situation. So I love this quote. All right, so here's some final thoughts for you all on what's next. I'll give you a couple minutes back. You'll get a recap of the highlights. You'll also get a tool which actually has the giving and receiving feedback in it, in the slide tool, Nina, the questions and so forth. And we're doing a survey after every session, so you'll get that as well. Quick little pulse survey that Otis likes to do. Don't forget to schedule your one-on-one with your sponsor. Use those questions with your sponsor. And do that in June. If you're not at a cadence of every 4 to 5 weeks, make sure that you increase that. And then we will see you at the end of June for learning session 5 with outside-in strategic thinking. Okay, so I hope everyone has a great rest of the weekend, long weekend for those who have it. Thank you for being so engaged and sharing your thoughts of today with each other. And I look forward to seeing you in another month.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.